Stay with the NBA. Another interesting debate going on here. Who is your NBA Coach of the Year? A lot has changed in the past 2 weeks. You might have had Toronto coming in. I would assure you definitely don't have Toronto now. But David, who is your NBA Coach of the Year?
All right, I'm just going to put down on my list of candidates. Before I do that, I want some honorable mentions. Spoelstra, I'd like to say Mike Spoelstra did a great job with that Miami team. The Miami team was below the league average, I believe, in offense, yet they were still a top 10 defense in the league, maybe even top 6. I think they were 6th in the league. He did a great job with that team. They had an all-star in Goran Dragic, but Dragic isn't really an all-star caliber player. Still did a decent job getting to the playoffs, even though it is a weak Eastern Conference. Mike D'Antoni, I mean, they got Chris Paul, but still, I mean, when you have the #1 record in the NBA, I think you at least need to be somewhat considered for it. And then Brett Brown of the Philadelphia 76ers, because they ended up being 3rd in the conference. All right, now to my candidates. I have Dwayne Casey, Brad Stevens, Greg Popovich, and Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan was 4th. The Pacers were 4th in the NBA for defenses. Brad Stevens, 3rd-ranked defense. Dwayne Casey, 9th-ranked defense and 4th-ranked offense. And Popovich, probably his greatest coaching job ever, holding a team together with toothpick, paper clips, and bubble gum. Greg Popovich had the #1 ranked defense in the NBA, and he got them to the playoffs and took the Warriors. Did he take them down 1 or 2 games? Well, he wasn't coaching one of them, but anyway, still, he got to the playoffs. My coach of the year is Brad Stevens. Kyrie Irving was the guy after Gordon Hayward went down at the beginning of the season. We were like, oh no, the Boston experience failed. I mean, what did you think when Gordon Hayward went down? What was your thoughts on the Celtics season?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I thought they would be the 2 behind Cleveland, but they couldn't get past Cleveland. Well, except after the whole Isaiah Thomas, at the middle of the year, say, well, with Kyrie, probably we'll get past Cleveland. But then Cleveland got a little bit better, and Kyrie got hurt. But I would have said they would have been the 2 right behind Cleveland. But yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible job from Brad Stevens.
Then not only did Gordon Hayward's ankle get turned all the way backwards, not only did Kyrie Irving, towards the end of the season, when they were competing for the #1 seed with Toronto, go out because of knee surgery. In the first round of the playoffs, they did not have Jaylen Brown for most of that series. Marcus Morris didn't come back for most of that series. And they still took the Bucks with one of the top 5 talents, a top 5, top 10 talent in Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton playing extremely well. And they're on the brink of sweeping the 76ers with a generational talent in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And it's like, well, someone gets hurt. Well, we've got another guy to come up. Maybe it's just the Celtics have way better players than we thought. No, Brad Stevens is probably the best coach in the NBA. I don't know how he's done it. He's just an excellent coach.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree. I think for the top 3 best coaches, I think there's Kerr, I think there's Popovich, and I think there's Stevens.
Kerr's team basically running itself. I mean, Kerr is a great coach, but I mean...
Yeah, Stevens is doing an impressive job for the entire year. Obviously, losing Hayward, losing Kyrie. I mean, he's about to sweep the 76ers in a Eastern Conference semifinal series. That's just amazingly impressive without 2 superstars.
Not to mention that play at the end of that game last night. I mean, that was a beautifully designed play.
You're without your 2 superstars, and you're playing a team that is up and coming in the Sixers. That's tough to get by. However, I will say this with Brad Stevens. He is not going to be my coach of the year right now. I will have one in the Western Conference, so I'll get to him in a second. But Stevens, he had to get through Giannis, which hasn't had a lot of playoff experience. I've never been worried about Milwaukee. It was sort of tough. It took them 7 games to get by them, so I don't find that impressive. I do find being up 3-0 over the Sixers as pretty impressive, but I don't think it's insanely impressive yet just because Embiid and Simmons and that team just has no playoff experience. It was only 2 years ago that they were in the bottom of the league. I mean, last year they were in the bottom of the league. They had a run in the middle of the season, but they were towards the bottom. So The Sixers have no experience, so I would hold your horses on the Brad Stevens Coach of the Year. I think what he's doing is amazing. I would take him top 3 coaches in the league easy. But for this 1 year, I think you have to go to the West. It has to be Mike D'Antoni.
I mean, he was it last year. I mean, you can't do that when you add another historic generational talent at point guard. I mean,
right, but my thought process on Houston is obviously you won't be able to tell until they play the Warriors. That series is going to come up. It's going to be pretty much that will be the NBA Finals. Whoever wins that will go on and win the NBA Finals. And if D'Antoni does beat the Warriors, then I think hands down, Coach of the Year, easy, lock it up, give it to him, seal it, send it, whatever. He would be the Coach of the Year. But we don't know what they're going to do against the Warriors yet. But I still think you have to think how impressive of a job D'Antoni has done. They've taken down the Warriors in terms of the regular season. Yes, the Warriors had a lot of injuries. Personally, I still don't think they're going to beat the Warriors if they face them in the next round, which they probably will. But D'Antoni, this is the most impressive thing, right? The Rockets have always been up there in the Western Conference since they got in Harden, but defensively they've sucked. But this year is a different team. They're second in the NBA in terms of defensive rating behind the Golden State Warriors. You can look it up, NBA Advanced Stats. So they're near the top of the league on defense. This might have to do with Chris Paul, but it can't only be Chris Paul. There has to be something that D'Antoni's doing, and you're seeing just a much more well-rounded Houston team that you haven't seen, and that's why people are taking them as serious threats to win an NBA Finals. Before, you've never seen that. Now, yes, due to Chris Paul, but also due to D'Antoni. Right. And I would still take Brad Stevens as my coach over D'Antoni, but for this year, for right now, until they lose to the Warriors, I think it has to be D'Antoni.
I mean, if we're arguing for Coach of the Year, though, we have to, of course, how the team's performing needs to be taken into account. But, the personnel that they're working with, Popovich having top-ranked defense with no one in that. I think LaMarcus Aldridge is the only scorer that they have. But Brad Stevens, even with his top 2 players going down, and he was without Jaylen Brown and Marcus Morris and Marcus Smart for so long while they've been in the playoffs, he still managed to keep this team not only afloat, but they're soaring through these playoffs right now. When you have to consider personnel for this. D'Antoni, he won Coach of the Year last year. But he's also added Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a top 3 point guard in the league.
Stevens added Kyrie Irving from us the year. I get
Kyrie's hurt. Kyrie's hurt. He's not playing right now. And then we have Eric Gordon. We've got Trevor Ariza. We've got Clint Capella on that team. Those guys, James Harden. These guys are well recognized athletes. Al Horford's an all-star, but Al Horford is the bottom tier of the all-stars. Terry Rozier, he's coming off and he's playing like Kyrie 2.0 on the court. Jason Tatum, excellent talent. Jaylen Brown, how he's maneuvering this talent around this team and he's maximizing everyone's potential, I think you have to go with Brad Stevens as the Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I still think Stevens is the better coach, and I think you can't underestimate what he's doing. It's incredible, but I think people are overlooking D'Antoni, and I think that's the point is Houston's playing really good defense. You've never seen that from James Harden and the Houston Rockets. So that by itself, if you think about it, that's really the only thing D'Antoni needed to do is fix the defense. The offense with Harden and Paul, going to be great. It's the defensive side. All right.